Hmm.
Is my hair okay?
Mine isn't, but never mind.
Uh, so welcome everyone to another episode of the Heartfelt Presence podcast. Today we have Maria. Is it? It's Maria, right? That's I'm
Yeah,
pronouncing.
Maria. Yes, yes.
And we're just gonna see what's gonna unfold here. So do you want to like tell us a little bit about yourself and anything at all to get a conversation started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Maria Iliffe-Wood. I've been a coach forever, it feels like. I think I did my first coach training in 1988. Um, and I set up my own business as a coach in 2009. Um, so I work with coaches and I work with leaders, and in the last year I've started working with people who want to write books as well. I'm starting I've somehow been drawn into becoming a publishing company as well as a coach, as
Oh
well
wow,
as everything
cool.
else. She's been very interesting. Um, and I'm a coach on the Heartfelt Presence.
Yeah,
So,
and that's
yeah.
a great opportunity because I forgot to introduce what Heartfelt Presence is. So, good segue there.
Thank goodness I mentioned
Yeah.
it.
So, for those just kind of listening here who don't know what Heartfelt Presence is, it's a community of about 200-ish coaches and other people that work in kind of the mental health field, and we're basically offering a free 24/7 Zoom room that anyone in the world can just pop in. If you're going through a hard time or something, you just pop in, you go to heartfeltpresence.org. That's the
Mm,
address. And yeah, basically, Maria is one of the coaches there, which is why we're doing the podcast.
yeah. It's been phenomenal seeing how it's grown. When I first joined, there was a lot of gaps. We didn't have anywhere near the number of coaches, and I didn't get in right at the beginning. But it's lovely to see now that there's hardly any gaps, is there? So pretty
Mm,
much any time, day or night, if somebody's having a hard time, they could just come on and have a conversation. And we've had some, people have been on who are going through some pretty hard times. And the thing that's I was having a conversation with somebody, and they talked about the courage to come onto the 24/7
mm,
Zoom room. And I thought I'd forgotten about that, actually. That if somebody's having a really hard time, even coming into a place like that where they're going to be welcomed and where the space is really safe, it can still feel really, really, hard to
mm,
do that. So if there's anybody listening who's having a hard time, it's such a safe, warm place that I hope
mm.
people will feel that they can come. They don't even have to talk. Some people just come in and just sit and listen to
Yeah,
what's going on.
with the camera off and the microphone
That's
off.
it. Yeah. Don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Don't have to share anything. Um,
Mm.
and somebody will just be there for you.
Yeah, that's so important, and it's also something
Mm,
that I feel like I don't think about it enough. That's just like it does take courage. It does take a little bit of like I'm gonna reach out for help because when we're in a low place, it doesn't always, you know, feel so easy to
no.
come and stuff like that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm curious, and obviously I'm just curious about random things to get the
Yep.
ball rolling. But like, how has your coaching practice, like, how did it start and how did it evolve over time?
So, like I said, it started around 1988. I went on a week's training course with the bank that I worked for, who gave me all these tools and techniques that I practiced on a week's training course. And at the end of it, I thought, oh yes, I'm a coach now. Little did I know, really, that was just the beginning of a massive learning journey.
Mhm.
And so I was a big learning and development nut forever. Like every opportunity I can get to go on a training course, to go on a workshop, like I would just be up for absolutely anything. And coaching became, as a leader, it became my preferred style in terms of helping people to really do well at work, um, you know, do well in their career. It was my favorite part of the job. And then when in 2009 I decided I was going to go self-employed, Like I decided to go self-employed, and then I had to work out what I was going to do.
Mm.
Like, this all happened on the same day. It's like, all right, I'm gonna coach people because that's the bit that I enjoy the most. And I did a whole load more training, because the company that I worked for, they were fantastic at giving you training, but they didn't give you any bits of paper to prove it.
Mm.
So I then went on some, degree and postgraduate courses. I became a qualified coach supervisor, qualified leadership coach, qualified team coach. And then I wrote a book, which is this one here, called Coaching Presence. And the weekend after I handed the manuscript in to the publisher, my husband and I went to see Dick and Bettinger
Mm-hmm.
on a 3-day workshop in Essex. And that was my very first introduction to the principles.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed. Like, so my coaching had been very traditional. Like, I'd got all of the tools and all of the techniques, and, really helped people. I wrote this book about coaching presence. I can't say that I actually knew what coaching presence was. Like, that really is something that I've learned more about since I wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
But then coming across the principles, and then really understanding quite a lot more deeply about how the mind works. And in that book, I talked about, we all have an invisible coach within us.
Mm.
Like, that was really clear to me, even before I knew anything about the principles. And that was the part for me, which is when I'm working with people, that's what I want people to see and be able to tap into, that they have this source of wisdom within them.
Mm.
That, that's where to find the answers to whatever things that we were coaching them about. And what's really fascinating to me is that people don't know, and I've been asked, did you write that book before you knew about the principles or after? Because you can't tell. And
Mm.
this is the thing for me, when you look back, you don't need to know the principles to know how it works, because it's been working whether we know it or not. And so for me, that book, it talks about when none of us are broken, we don't need fixing, we have an invisible coach within us that is the source of all the wisdom that we need. Like, I knew that before I knew anything about the principles. And that's the fundamental core of the principles.
So I just want to catch up to anyone who's listening and isn't exactly, hasn't really heard the term, the principles yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you actually kind of just described them pretty quickly. Can you, so, I mean, I feel like there's different kind of parts to this, but like one
Yeah.
thing that kind of stuck out for me is that you're not broken.
I
What can
mean,
you describe your kind of perspective on that, or?
yeah, I'd love to, because like a lot of people who want to come into the Heartfelt Presence room will feel broken. Like, that's why they're coming, because
Mm.
they're in such a bad state. And so I'm not saying to anybody that you can't feel broken, because we can all feel broken. But the essence of who we really are, which is where the principles point to, like that part of us that is intangible, that guides us, whether we call it wisdom or whether we call it true self, like that part of us can never be broken. But we can get really, really caught up in stuff that makes us feel that way. I've been in a place where I thought I was pretty broken, um, and I thought there was something wrong with me my whole life, like never quite good enough. Why would anybody like me? Why would anybody be interested in me? I'm not, that kind of thinking, which really makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. But there's, at the core of who we are, like that's the part of us that can't ever be broken. And when you're in that place, it's really, really hard to see it. Like,
Mm.
if somebody had said to me when I was in my darkest times, if they'd have said to me, you're not broken, you've got this core within you that's always okay, like I wouldn't have been able to hear it.
Mm.
So when we're talking to people, it's like I don't want to make people hear anything. They'll hear what they'll hear. But what I do know about the Heartfelt Presence space is that we everybody who comes on there as a coach has this appreciation of knowing that underneath everything we're not broken.
Mm.
And because they know that, they can hold this space for people who feel like they are,
Mm. Yeah.
without it being, they don't have to try and change them. They don't have to try and make it better for them. Because, it's like when people do come to the Heartfelt Presence room, it's because something within them has guided them there.
Mm.
In the same way that it might guide them to take the time off work, or it might guide them to go to the doctors, or it might guide them to go and speak to a friend, or it might guide them to sit in a darkened room for several hours and just cry, because that's a way of getting something out. Like, there's something within us that's guiding us, and we don't always see it as wisdom. And for me, it's like when I look back over my life, I can see how that I was being guided by my own inner wisdom, even in the times when I didn't think I was.
Mm.
And that's I'm not bothered about telling anybody what the principles are. Like, the principles are not the thing. But helping them to see what they know already and what's true for them, that's the thing that's going to make the difference. And that comes from within them. It comes from that place within them. It doesn't come from me or any of the other coaches.
Mm. Yeah. I definitely like it makes me think of how, one of the, I don't know, techniques that kind of float around in our culture is like, oh, if you're feeling, you know, unwell in yourself, tell yourself that you're worthy, and try to make yourself think that way, and it just doesn't work.
No.
And you know, I find that it's so important to talk about the difference between like telling yourself some different story
Yeah.
versus seeing and realizing something that's already within you.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, because when we're telling ourselves something like that, the thing that is at the core behind it is the feeling of not feeling whatever it is that you're telling yourself. So for me, that to me is counterintuitive, because if I feel like there's something wrong with me, so I'm saying to myself there's nothing wrong with you, it's because I feel like there's something wrong with me. So the
Yeah,
thing that's informing the positive thinking is the negativity.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas if I know that I'm feeling really unworthy at the moment, and I understand that that's related somehow to thought. And I don't always know how it's related, but I know there's a correlation between the way that I'm feeling and what thought is doing in my mind. And that thought is transient. And so at some point that'll probably pass.
Hmm.
And just because I'm feeling unworthy at this moment doesn't make it true, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me. I'm just feeling unworthy at the moment. That for me is a whole lot better than trying to fight with the feeling of unworthiness and trying to make it disappear and go away.
Hmm.
Like, sometimes I feel unworthy, like we all do, no matter how much we understand how it works. But having a different relationship with that is the thing that makes the difference.
Hmm.
Like, people think that if they get an understanding of how it all works, then they'll never have a bad mood. They'll never feel angry. They'll never feel sad or grief or worried or unworthy. They won't, but we do. We still feel all of those things, but it's like it doesn't grip us quite so tightly.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely like what has evolved for me the more that I've seen deeper into this is it's as if when I do feel low, it I that there's no pressure on myself to fix it or do anything about it, or like, because I see it as like, oh, all systems are working great. It's like I'm thinking something that's, painful or upsetting or
Yeah.
depressing, and I feel depressed. That means that's like a healthy reaction. And like just seeing that as healthy just completely changes the game, because then it's
Yeah.
like it's not really indicative of like something is wrong with me, right? Exactly as you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. I mean, I can get really worried about stuff. like really worried stuff, and it can feel like I'm worrying about it all day, and it feels pretty horrible. It's just trying to kind of really, like, you still feel the feelings as powerfully as at any other time, but it's just something about it just doesn't, it's just not such a big deal. Like, you still feel really horrible, you still feel like really worried, whatever it is that's causing the worry.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll pass when it passes. I remember an instance a couple of years ago where something happened and I got right into my head about something, and it felt like for 2 whole days I was just really worried about this thing and the consequences of what was going to happen, kind of a few months down the line if I didn't get this sorted out now. And it really felt really strong. I felt it really, like, really deeply. I felt it. But there was also some things, like when I reflected back on it afterwards, I knew I wasn't in it 100% of the time. I was going in and out of it without trying to make it happen. So we still feel the feelings. And sometimes I think we feel them even more strongly because we're more aware. But it just means, like you said, it just means that, it's the human design. We're designed that way and it's working.
Yeah, it's a total, I mean, it's 180 degrees from, there's something in you that's broken and we need to bring the wrenches in and screw it properly.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, like, you're using the creative power that's like you're given, this like gift of the creative freedom of thought, and it's like using that to look at yourself or look at something in a certain way and then feeling that experience. It's like that's completely healthy.
Yeah. One of the things that bothers me sometimes when we're talking about the principles is that people who don't know much about them will think that there's something, it can really make people think that whatever they're experiencing is their fault. Because one of the things that we talk about is that we have thoughts, we have the power of thought, and it's doing its thing in our heads, and we feel what we feel as a result of the thinking. And then, so people start thinking that they shouldn't be having the thoughts that are creating the feelings that they're having. So if they're having the thoughts, that means that there's something wrong with them, that they're doing something wrong. And for me, one of the things that I've really know to be true is, like, I cannot stop a thought coming into my head. Like, so if I can't stop a thought coming into my head, then I can't be responsible for the effect it has on me in that way. So there's no point if I'm feeling worried or anxious or angry, like, it wasn't me that decided to think the thought. Like, the thought, we don't know where they come from. They kind of come from somewhere or other.
Yeah.
They come into our head and then we feel them, but we kind of get into this idea that I should have been able to stop it somehow. And that's the thing that's not true. But it's almost like, I sometimes use a traffic light metaphor. Like, if the thoughts come in from this side, we don't have a set of traffic lights here. But somehow we've got a set of traffic lights here, and we're in control of these traffic lights a bit.
Yeah.
And so when we can find ourselves getting caught up in paying a lot of attention to the thought that we had no control of in the first place. And then we give it a load of attention, which it kind of turns the traffic light to red to stop it from leaving.
Yeah.
And so what I want to really help people to see is that, if you don't do anything with the thinking that comes into your mind, the natural trajectory of it is that it will pass. But I don't want people to think there's anything wrong with them if it doesn't work that way all the time for them, because it doesn't work that way all the time for me. Like sometimes the thought comes in and it stays with me and I get all the feeling, because I think one of the things that's happening for me is like, it doesn't matter what experience I'm having, I know I'm okay.
Yeah.
And even in the really most horrible of experiences, I had an experience where I thought my husband was dying on a flight. And that was really powerful, because I had all of this really, really scared. I was so scared. I can't say I've ever been more scared in my life, because it really looked like he was going to die on that flight.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a part of me that it was almost like there was two parts to me. Like I could see all of this really, really scared thinking, and this part of me, which was completely calm, which was completely, knew what I was doing, was answering all the questions from the cabin crew, was, got everything together, all of this kind of stuff going on. Like that was fascinating to me, that I could be like, that part of me that knows was really clear compared to this part of me that was completely scared out of my wits.
Mm.
And so like I could really see that clearly, that I wasn't this that was going on in my head.
Yeah, yeah. Like, it's not like you have to make the experience go away.
No,
Like, but
that's it.
it's kind of like, but by seeing like that from that deeper place, or even just like kind of, and there's always that knowing that like I am something deeper than just what's happening superficially.
Yes. Yeah.
Just that knowing in itself is enough to have this like almost like a peace with whatever is moving through you.
I love that. Yeah. Peace with whatever's going on. So a really good example of that is like, long before I knew anything about the principles, I was in a previous relationship and I had the most terrible temper. Like I would shout and rant and rave, and there'd be times when I'd be having an absolute rant at my ex-partner, and there was a part of me that knew I was being completely irrational, but I couldn't do anything about it, like, because the difference was that part of me that could see me being totally irrational, I didn't understand what that part of me was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that it was the part of me that is always okay and got all of this stuff going on. That to me is fascinating, that I had an awareness of it long before. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
talking 20, 30 years ago,
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
30 years, more than 20, that that it was there and I could see it, but I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
And now with an understanding of knowing that, oh yeah, I have all this irrational thinking and there's a part of me, and this is the part that is the peace, like peace with all of this stuff going on.
Hmm.
That's freedom, that is, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
definitely like you just saying that. It makes me think about all the times, like, you know, same as you, before I sort of had a deeper understanding of all this stuff that we're talking about. But like, I would still, even in the midst of like an argument, like an intense argument, there would still be that, like, that presence that just knows that like I'm just stirring, stuff up. And it's like I don't want to listen to it. I'm like, no, no, no. This is a
Yeah.
real problem, and I really like shush, shush, wisdom,
Yeah.
like in the back. Like I, but it was there. I just didn't
Yeah.
really listen to it.
Yeah. That's what I love when I look back, how you can see how that voice was there all along. Like it's been there all along, even though we didn't know what it was. Um, and also seeing how insights change you, because my temper didn't go because of the principles. Like my temper went many years before the principles showed up in my life, through an insight. Like I had an insight whereby I suddenly thought, oh my God, this is not the kind of person I want to be. I
Hmm.
don't want to be came from an exchange with my deputy. I had a team of 65 people at the time, and my deputy I was doing her appraisal, and she said that one of the things I used to give her a lift in the mornings in the car, and she said to me, it's good having a lift to work with you in the mornings, because then I can let the team know if it's okay to talk to you that day. And that's because my mood swings were so bad.
Yeah.
So, but instead of me getting really angry about, how dare she, like, I'm mega amazed that I didn't have that reaction to what she said to me. There was a voice within me that went, oh my God, that's not the kind of person I want to be. And then my temper gradually shifted. The anger responses, like I would catch myself. At first, it wasn't until after I'd finished shouting at somebody. It didn't change my life like instantly.
Yeah.
But over a period of time, gradually, I would catch myself earlier and earlier having a really angry outburst, until it got to a point where calm was my automated response. So the insight happened without me having an understanding of the principles, without me understanding about, I'm not broken, I've got this inner wisdom. That's what I love. I look back over my life before the principles and see how life was working in this way all along.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it.
Yeah, because like it's not like you need to understand the principles in order to experience insights. It's
No.
just that the principles kind of let you know a bit more deeply that you do have the capacity for insights and that it has been working your whole life.
Yeah. That's the thing for me. The principles, it's a very, very simple explanation of how it works. Like, it's not a diagnosis, it's not a fix. Like, people think, oh yeah, I want to learn the principles and then I'll feel better. Like, that's not how it's designed. This is just an explanation. This is how it works. And then somehow, with just having that understanding, it makes a difference.
It's a bit of a mystery, isn't it?
It is.
Can you okay, I'm going to throw you a fastball. Can you just share to the best of your ability what the principles are to you?
Okay. So it's 3 words, what Sid used. So mind, consciousness, and thought. Okay. So mind, if you use my terminology, it's that invisible coach that we all have within us. It's like inner wisdom. It's life, the intelligence behind life working through us. And we know it's here because we're alive. Like, that's the evidence. We're alive. So we have this life force within us, and there's an intelligence in that. Then we have, I'm going to switch to thought. Like, we have this energy of thought that goes on even before we have language. Like, thought isn't anything to do with the content of thinking. So if you look at babies have the power of thought creating their experience. They have no language whatsoever. But the power of thought, it's doing its thing. They have their mood swings. They have their moments when they're really happy, and their moments when they're screaming their head off, and they've just got the power of thought. So the power of thought is creating our experience at any given moment. And then there's the consciousness, our awareness of all of that, like our awareness of life, our awareness of the thinking that we have going on in our hand, the awareness of everything. Like, really, really simple. Like, so simple.
Yeah. I really like what you said about describing thought, because a lot of the times when I'm talking about thought with like my friends or family and stuff like that, like I know that colloquially it's understood as the words in my head of like what like self-talk. Like I think people equate self-talk with thought. And the thought, like when you say something like our experience is created through the power of thought, it's like that thought is this like just this raw energy, just like this pure raw energy that has no defined form. And I like the like I kind of like to use the metaphor of like, you know, you could say like like steel being this raw material, and with it you can forge, a sword.
Yeah.
And like you could say the sword is made of thought, but it's not really thought because, or sorry, the sword's made of steel, but it's not really steel.
Yeah.
Steel is like that raw energy, the material that it's made of. And so it's like the words that we think in our head are made of that spiritual energy, but it's the same spiritual energy that you'd use to, imagine something or even recollect a memory or
Mhm.
like, and obviously, it's projected through our senses. It's like we're always, always, always experiencing this energy.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing as well is people think that there's an absolute awareness and consciousness of the content of thinking, that they think that that's creating the feeling, but so much of it has been automated in our subconscious for our whole life. And so we feel something, and the thought that if we tried to work out every individual thought, what is the language that goes in this thought that's creating this feeling, we have to go way back to find it, which is one of the other things that I love about the principles, is you don't have to work out what the original thought was that's created this feeling, because
Mm.
oftentimes, especially those feelings of being unworthy, or those kind of low self-esteem feelings, like they started very early on in our lives, and we've just got into this habitual automated use of them creating our experience. Like, we don't have to work out where it all came from. We just know that, oh yeah, I'm not feeling very good at the minute, which means it's something to do with the energy of thought. I don't have to work out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have to work out, because oftentimes it's not, it's consciousness is not necessarily being conscious of what's going on, as in being conscious of the individual thought that created the experience. The consciousness is a greater consciousness. It's an awareness, and it's like being aware that we're aware. Consciousness is the one that I really struggle more with in terms of trying to explain. So there's always one that we can't, or maybe two even,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all one anyway. But yeah, so for me, it's like that consciousness is not necessarily consciousness in the way that of being conscious.
Yeah, like kind of practicing observing your thinking all the time.
Mm.
I think, tell me if this is what you're saying, because I'm not exactly sure, but like consciousness has a way of bringing to our attention something automatically. And so the way I see it is it's like it's not really your job to be on top of your thoughts all the time,
Mm.
because consciousness brings to your awareness what's happening in your mind automatically.
Yeah, I love that, because one of the things I say to people is, you'll notice when you notice that links in with that. Like, it's not that you decide to be aware of what you're thinking. It's like all of a sudden you notice,
Hmm.
and that's consciousness bringing it to your attention.
Yeah, it's like, look what you're
Yeah.
doing right now.
Yes.
And that's, oh yeah, another thing, like what you were saying before about how you don't have to look into the past. Like what I understood from what you were saying is like you don't have to look in the past because the thinking that's creating the experience is happening in the present. So you
Mm,
never really have to look further than in the present moment to see what's causing you pain.
mm. Yeah, because it can only be thought in the moment that's causing the pain.
Mm.
It might be something that you've thought a lot of times over and over and over again. So automated. But yeah, no, I agree with that. Hadn't seen it that way before.
That's I find it so, you know, like talk about change and how, it's like change is this culturally we perceive it as something that takes a long time, like chipping away at an ice block or something,
Yeah.
for years. And yet it's possible and it happens, we see it all the time. We see it in the room, um, where people experience an insight. They just see something and it can be like 10 years of depression, just kind of like poof. And the
Yeah.
next day it's like being a new person almost.
Yeah. The other thing I don't want to do is give people the expectation that that's going to happen for them as well. Um, because what like I had that, like I really wanted an experience like Sid had. I wanted to see everything in a moment, and my life change, exponentially overnight. Like I really wanted that. But what I've seen is how, for me, it's been a drip feed of insights.
Hmm.
And you don't always realize how the insights have changed you. There's just moments. I know that I've had moments where I've suddenly realized that, oh, now this is different. I'm experiencing this moment, or this, whatever it is, this circumstance that's going on. And it's not how I normally experience it. Something's shifted and something's changed. And I can't always put my finger on it. I just know something's changed. And I can't always say what insight it was that made the change. So yeah, people do have an insight that makes a big difference to them very quickly, but the vast majority of us have a drip feed. It's a
Hmm.
drip feed effect more than anything. And you don't always, like, I remember my first insight when I saw Dickon that first time. And I didn't realize how deep that insight was until I wrote about it about 2 or 3 years ago. And then when I wrote about it, I thought, oh my God, now I see how deep that insight was and how actually it did make a huge difference to me. But it took about 4 or 5 years for me to realize that.
Hmm. I find it interesting because, like, I'm in the category of people that saw it in like like
Fantastic.
for me, you know, it kind of hit me like a train a little
Wow.
bit,
Yeah.
and I remember I was laughing. I thought it was fun. I started like all the habitual thoughts that I used to think were me.
Yeah.
I saw that it's just like, oh, it's just this energy that's like I'm using it, and like it was hilarious because it's like hitting yourself in the face your whole life
Wow.
and then seeing
Yeah.
that it's your own hand and
Yeah.
being like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But I remember laughing. But definitely, like what you're saying, it's important not to put that out there as like an expectation for yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
because um it takes away from actually um actually dropping in instead of thinking, oh, I need to get there, I need to figure
Yeah.
something out, I need to
I think
understand that.
lots of people can use the principles against themselves. It's like it's probably just a continuation of what they've done before, but it's like if they don't see the big insight, or if they don't have the big shift, then they make it about, yeah, I'm using the principles wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but it
And
definitely is, like, you're a living example of it. I love that. It's definitely the chance for it to change. It's like you're one thought away from a whole different experience of life. And that I do believe that is true.
mhm.
Like, you can be in a really bad mood, you can be really in a feeling of feeling unworthy, and then one thought, and in that nanosecond you feel better.
Yeah.
And for me, that's happening all of the time with everybody, but they're not noticing it.
Yeah.
And so what I often do is I'll often point people into, notice the times when you feel okay, as opposed to paying so much attention to the times when you don't, because it is already happening. I thought, you have a thought and you shift into a nicer state of mind. It's happening already.
Hmm.
It's just not on that big, big, big scale, but it is definitely happening already. And the more people pay attention to that, the more likely they are to stay in a nicer state of mind more often.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of, it makes me think about even like if you're having a bad day, it's like having a bad day is completely an in the moment experience, because the next moment you might be in a good mood
Yeah.
and be having a good day, and
Yeah.
when you're in that state of mind, it's like it really looks like the whole day has been a good day. And then when you're in the, because you notice all the good things, right? And like, oh,
Yes.
I was happy this morning, and I'm going to be with my family this evening, and we're going to be watching TV, and it's going to be great. And then you go into that negative state, and it's like, oh, today's been a bad day.
Yeah.
I tripped on my way to work. I got coffee on my shirt, and I'm not going to get any sleep tonight. And it's like they're both this like almost like a self justifying reality that kind of takes you over a little bit,
Mm.
but it's transient. And
Yeah.
that's like, I think that's kind of what you're pointing at here, is like there is a moment to moment, nanosecond to nanosecond possibility for that, for what you're seeing to just completely change.
Yeah. Yeah. And people who are in a really dark place, like that's really hard for them to acknowledge that it's even possible. And when I look back to the time I was 3.5 months in a really dark place, I didn't go to work for that whole time. Like it's only when I look back and I see the sparks, like those moments when something did guide me that I couldn't possibly have been aware of or known about in the moment. So it's really hard when somebody's in a really dark place to be saying to them, you're not broken, you've got your own wisdom.
Yeah.
You're making it all, it's all thought, like making it about that. And then it's saying, and if you're feeling this way, then it must be your fault because all of this. And that's really not where what I want people to use. I don't want to use the principles as another. You talked about the hand hitting yourself. It's like, okay, instead of using my hand, I'm going to use the principles. And so really yeah, just don't want people to think that I don't want it to be just another tool for people to beat themselves up with.
Right.
And
Totally.
that's why the heartfelt presence is so. What I love about it is that people who are holding that space have a level of understanding that just holding the space is enough. Like they don't have to judge the people that are coming in. They won't judge the people for being in a bad space,
Mm-hmm.
in a bad place. It's just a place where they can talk, because while they're talking, like their wisdom is
Yeah.
informing something. We don't know what's going to make the difference to them.
Yeah. Totally. I was like, I'm gonna say this thing, and then I'm like, no, it's gone.
It's gone.
Oh yeah, it's, I guess as you see the deeper nature to, like, how we were talking about before, about how there's kind of a deeper self experiencing this moment. it it's like you can allow people to come into that space and and not need them to change,
Yeah.
and just be like, I acknowledge you where you are, I'm here with you. And exactly like what you said, it's like there's a trust, this person is feeling safe, and um what needs to come up is going to come up, and what's going to come up eventually is wisdom and insight, because we all have it in us. So yeah, definitely with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Not, yeah, it's like not not making people feel like they have to be happy,
Yeah.
even though, like,
They
one,
want to be.
yeah, if you want, it's like, we obviously we do want people to be happy, but we don't want people to feel like there's pressure on them for that to happen.
Mhm.
And so it's okay, like it's okay to be in whatever state you're in.
I think that's the thing as well. It's like, and knowing that where they are right in that moment is the exact right place for them to be.
Hmm. I'm thinking of what you're saying, and I feel like there's different ways of interpreting. I wonder what you meant by that.
Mm-hmm. Just the fact that, yeah, there is different ways of interpreting it. Like the fact that they've come to the heartfelt presence room. Like, first of all, that's the exact right thing for them to have done in that moment, because
Hmm.
wisdom was guiding them to there in the moment. And whatever that they've got going on in their heads in that moment is the exact right thing for them to be going through at the moment. Like one of the things, like, I don't know what wisdom is. Like, I don't know, like things happen that look as if they're a bad thing. And then when you look back at them with the benefit of hindsight, something good came out of it.
Mm.
So was it wisdom or was it not wisdom? So I can't make a judgment call as to whatever anybody's state of mind is in the moment, whether that's wisdom or not, I don't know.
Mm.
So whatever state of mind they're in the moment, whatever state of mind we're in right here, right now, that's the state of mind that is just right for this moment. And then we can have a whole load of adding layers of meaning to that, because that's what we kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it takes the pressure off to simply acknowledge where you are in this moment.
Mm.
And it's like, you know, you kind of like, okay, thought will change and shift, and so that state will change and shift. But like, if you were to take any single tiny nanosecond, you can't change that. That's just where you are. And like, I definitely appreciate um, how acknowledging and sort of like being with, you know, this one time I was on an airplane and there was this baby that was like crying near me so loud I couldn't sleep, just like crying the whole flight. And I was frustrated, right? I was like, oh, this baby, like, why can't they just like put like duct tape over her mouth or something like that? And I remember like I was feeling deeply frustrated and upset, almost to the point where it was like distraught, like, oh. And I kind of wanted to cry in that moment a little bit. And I thought, well, adults can't cry. It's not socially acceptable to cry on an airplane as an adult, but babies can. And so in that moment, I was like, you know what, baby? I totally get you. Like, if I were you, I would just cry right now. So that's cool. You cry. And in that moment, it was like this kind of acceptance. And that acceptance transformed into peace for me.
Mm.
And it was kind of this cool little, it's like, because from the perspective of, you know, that deeper self, it's almost like a witnessing and an allowing of everything that's coming up. And so I almost played the role of that by just simply acknowledging what was happening in my experience. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah. God, I bet you were so jealous of the baby then.
Oh yeah, I was like, I just
I want to
let it out.
too. That's lovely, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know how long we said we were going to talk for this.
But I feel like it's probably about time for us to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Um, it
that's
was
lovely.
Yeah, it was delightful to have you on, and a pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah, and you. Yeah.
Um,
I'm sorry, I've got the light streaming in the window, so the lighting's terrible, my hair's terrible. It's just one of those moments.
yeah. Well, it's funny because um, I know that that's like the lighting in the hair. There's definitely things that I forget about whenever I, do things like this. And so I made an email. And did you see that email?
No.
Okay, yeah. So I was like, this is what the email says, like, if you're like me, please remember this. Like, look at the lighting, check your hair. And like, there's like a list of things, but I only sent it to you, 20 minutes before.
Oh, right. Okay.
So you're forgiven.
Yeah. No, that's fine. And I thought it was a podcast. So I was thinking, oh, it's only a recording. I don't need to worry about lights or lighting or my hair or anything like that. But I'm not that bothered about it either. So
Yeah, I think
It
I'm
is
gonna
what it
keep it.
is. It's been a lovely conversation. That's been the main thing.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
has been a pleasure. Do you want to like what time are you on Heartfelt Presence?
Um, Now then, the time change in the UK has caused a problem. So my slot is normally 10 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm just trying to work out how I can get back to being at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday because I can't do it's my slot is shifted to 11 o'clock. So I'm trying to see if I can get it back to 10 a.m. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be 10 a.m. on a Wednesday still.
Okay. And that's in UK time,
In
which
the
is
UK, sorry, yes. Yeah, UK time.
cool. Is there any way, like, if anyone wants to personally get in touch with you, do you have like a website or something like that?
Yeah. So the coaching website is fromquiet.co.uk, which is easily to remember. And then if anybody's interested in the writing stuff, we haven't mentioned that at all, but they can just Google my name, Maria Iliffe-Wood, and the website is ilife-wood.co.uk. But the 3P stuff mostly is, and leadership stuff is fromquiet.co.uk.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, and
No, thank you for inviting me.
it was a pleasure. I hope to see you again, maybe in a few months.
Yeah,
It gets booked. This podcast is booked out really far, but
that's
yeah,
so good. That is so good. Yes.
definitely. Thanks for coming on, and it was delightful.
Thank you, Peter.